All right, cool.
The
We
sales
are.
department, could you put a slate up first and then process it?
No, what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to make the thumbnail and upload it while it's processing.
Got
That way it never gets a chance to make one. So then it will just be whichever one that I make.
That makes sense.
Just like there's a lot of weird stuff with like social media, and like, cause it's not like any of these like platforms are really designed for like advanced use. But they're so serious now. Like people like it's really important that things get uploaded correctly to every platform, and everything, every T has to be crossed, every I has to be dotted. But they're not really made for that. So there's all these hacks that you have to learn on how to trick them into publishing things the way you want.
I guess, I mean, like, nobody really had a national TV standards, or anything like that before. So I
Yeah.
guess it's new Wild West. So we got to figure out how to put
Yeah.
this together.
I remember when I went to NAB the first time. Like NAB, you'll learn really quickly that there's just this very massive set of standards and rules and everything for all that stuff. Social media doesn't really have that. It's
Yeah.
kind of
I have,
like,
I mean, talking about, well, I think we left off with trophies and awards, and
yes,
that was going to lead to was not so much blowing smoke up my ass, but it's teamwork, and that's probably a good segue into where it would start. This is one. I was working at ABC, and having a team around you, it doesn't, and you really got to learn how to work with it in a team environment. Like the rants I had with you guys with I told you you're going to put together a movie, and you're going to be the carpenter, you're going to be the pyrotechnician, you're going to be the lighter, you're going to be the film man, you're going to be the cameraman, you're going to be the actor. You look at me like I'm fucking nuts, And Maya and basically these productions, whether they're game, I mean, from look development all the way through storyboarding, through whatever. I mean, it's just a plethora of people. Well, two stories for you. At ABC, there's this art director that I was working with. I use this as a story all the time, and put into art director's place, and has no clue of what I mean. Aesthetically, somewhat, but when it comes to actually putting a piece together, has no chops for managing people. Very not very nice with dealing with people. Did you just do that, Art?
do
Yes,
what?
I did.
Did you see that? It looked like he reached over and threw a switch, and then oddsy turned red.
that
It was
was
it was
not
all
what I
my
was trying to
mistake. I
do.
was just playing around and
Me and Oz are actually in the same room together. It's just like
In the early days of a broadcast, talking NTSC 720 by 486. Yeah, that's how old I am. We were doing graphics, and I was doing designing the graphics and doing the templates for one of the templates for Good Morning America, which would stick for about 4 or 5 years. And this art director kept coming in and going, "You got to make this redder." Now back then there was a scope, and one was intensity, black burst. You couldn't make a super black on something because that was considered black burst, beginning of the signal. And I mean, there's all sorts of technical issues, but you couldn't go outside of a red scope. I'll probably bring it up while we're talking. Here we are. She goes, "Your graphic, it needs to be redder." I said, "Can't be any redder." I said, "Let I'm the art director, and you have to make it redder." I said, "Listen, you're not listening to NABIT and NTSC standards. This is as hot as I can make it." And red was on one side of the spectrum, whereas when you're looking at videotape, like there's red, and I really don't know how it works, but I know it's like once the color goes off a certain area, it bleeds into the sound area. So like,
oh yeah.
yeah.
right? So this red, you turn on the TV and it was humming, right? I said, I can't get any redder. Finally,
Such
the,
a
the engineer for next door, Don, comes running in, right? And she's like, "I'm the art director, and you don't have the authority to da da da." I said, "Listen, I don't have the authority. I said, government has the authority. Federal broadcast has the authority to
Yeah.
crush the graphic. I said, you have no idea what's going on. Finally, this engineer Don comes running in. Goes, Vic, what are you doing? I said, what am I doing? I'm building graphics. You know me. He goes, you know that graphic can't air, right? She's standing right there. And I went, talk to the
Yeah.
art director, right? And she's just standing there like uh, crab walking her way out. You know, she you know what to say because it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. But
The
yeah, that's one team, right? And the Oscar, which I mean was a long line of other
Wait, are we
awards,
recording already?
huh?
Are we recording already?
we are
I,
recording. Yeah.
I thought he said he was recording. Yeah,
Yeah.
was like like I said, a great teams that I've gotten to work with. ABC was probably the best broadcasting team that I worked with, and I think you can attribute that to an old friend of mine, Hal Arnold Thiel. I mean, he's a great art director. I mean, steps back, he gives you room to burn yourself. I had a couple sit downs with him where he kind of, had to straighten me out and stuff. But when you work with a good team, it's like all of a sudden you realize all your hard work and you're bitching about this person and bitching about that person. All of a sudden somebody comes around and goes, here, this is for you. And all of a sudden, you got an Emmy for some of your work for art direction. You're like, holy shit, somebody actually does recognize someone. Doesn't make your pay grade any better, but you're like, oh shit, at least you're somewhat appreciated among your peers. And up at Alias Wavefront, the Oscar was really kind of funny. We had the job of going up to Toronto at least twice a year. Every 6 months or 2 months. It should have been more like 2 months, but I think I never got out any less than 6 months. You would go up to Alias Wavefront and you would either report in to your seniors and management. My somewhat direct senior was all right. He was doing his stuff in Atlanta, but the senior application engineer was Kevin Tereski. And Kevin was up on stage receiving that Oscar at that time. What you either go up there, and if you're not smart enough to go to a certain person and learn, like, I'm having a problem here, let me go to the effects department. The people who are writing the effects stuff, and
Yeah.
that was crazy because like you could go and learn, like, these people got PhDs the length of my arm, and like they're incredible people, but smart. It like the social scale as to the smart scale.
Yeah.
You go to talk to one of these people and you explain a problem to them, and it's like, I'm having a problem. And they're just taking in all the information, but then they turn around and goes, do you know this is in the software? And half of them did some of the documentation. Some of us did some of the documentation on some of these tests, but you got this whole thing done. Where I was going is I'm working with this other gentleman, and he's like, you know what? This switching back and forth. We got hotkeys and we got hot boxes for all the shit. You know, just moving locally, moving globally, moving, all over the place. He's like, we have to go back to the hot. What happens if we had to hold down the W key, use the left mouse button, and a marking menu came up? He goes, let's work on that. So instead of doing a test grid, like bug testing the software or me going around, we spent like half a week just putting this thing together. It was the end of my 4 years, all the whole thing. But I'm writing up the white paper, how it should work. He's writing up most of the script for how it is working, and we got a prototype going. About
Mhm.
4, 5, it must have been 8 months later, I got laid off because the bean counters found out that the reseller thing was done. About 3 months after that was I got laid off in October. 3 months after that was the award season, and the Oscars were somewhere January, February, wherever the hell it was.
Hmm.
And there they are, the Scientific Achievement Award of the best piece of software that was used in the industry is Maya, and the president and Kevin Tereski up there waving it because he's actually the technical manager of stuff. And there's only one, right? Because it's given to the software. If you
Yeah.
had to give it to the company, I mean, talking about a team, there was 2,500 of us working on different pieces of the software. And like I always joke that, that little marking menu was if you took a little nail file and you hit the elbow of the statue, what came off on the elbow was my contribution, the little piece of gold. 3 months later, I see 3 months later, 6 months later, I see him at Seagraph in August, and I see him across the hall, and I go, "Hey man, what are you doing, man?" I said, "Where are you at?" I said, "Where I've always been at, 116 in the mountains." He goes, "Okay, I got something for you. When you get home, I'll send it to you." I'm up on the roof repairing something, and this envelope comes with "Do not bend." I open up the thing, and it's from the Academy. I mean, it's more than just a photograph. It opens up, it's gold plated to the award winner. It's a nice letter on the inside. So, I mean, it's nice to get an award, and but you have to really, like you two working together or anybody else working together. It's a larger team effort to really get across the finish line, and you have
Yeah.
to really work together, especially, I mean, just getting jobs, getting a recommendation, getting things like that, and having integrity
Yeah.
for stuff.
Did
I'm
any?
gonna attribute this quote to one of my mentors, Tony Cassioppo. He goes, and I don't know where he got it from, but he goes, "Awards are like hemorrhoids. After a while, every asshole gets one."
Wait, let's go back. We segued away from your. So when you got the Oscar letter, you
Yeah,
were on the
well, it was
roof.
the award from Tereski. It was one of those things where it's like it's nice to know that you have the team of people. And at that time, I left the company like 4 or 5 months, and still have that camaraderie. That I still had people who would recommend me for something, and going back to that guy who wouldn't recommend me or let me touch the software because I didn't have a computer sciences degree. The camaraderie of the people that were around me, at least people would recommend me for certain things and acknowledge me for my efforts.
Hmm.
I'm very much, and I always say I'm one of those these, thems, and those guys. I'm a Brooklyn, born, South Yonkers raised graduate of, some pretty interesting areas. And to work in such a technical field, and be semi good at it is an honor, but to be recognized that way is really cool. I'm humbled by it, because it's like, I never thought I can, and especially when you start dealing with young prodigies like you guys and like some of the other people. It's like when you sit there and you see people who are really hard workers, you realize that age is not a problem, and sometimes being a manager really is an issue. I know a lot of people who came from Pixar who basically aged out. Pixar got rid of them because they were there making too much money, and they wanted them to be managers, and then they love pressing buttons. And same thing, when you sit there, you're dealing. I said, you got a young guy who wants to be a manager, or he wants to be an art director. I said, go ahead, you deal with these crazy people. Just leave me here. You tell me what you want to do. You know, I'm happy just pressing the buttons.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
no, I always look for those opportunities. And sometimes it's fun because you see how many people come in the door that you train, and all of a sudden you're the people who are in management positions. Said you got a recommendation, you come in here and work, and all of a sudden you walk in, and it's like cheers. Hey, what are you doing here? You know, it's like 8 people are in the place that know you. It's like, hey guys, how you doing? You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
The one thing I remember, like the last interview we did, the part one. The one thing that I remember, like when you were talking about this, that I remembered from kind of 10 years ago when I was in college, was that there was still kind of like a rock star culture in visual effects, where there were just some people who, like performed really well and they had some notoriety, well, not notoriety, but they had some fame of sorts or something like that. I feel like it really is like now it's kind of more factory style, I guess, or like whatever. Like no individual really stands out anymore.
Well,
Um,
there was and is, and it still is, but I don't think anybody really look at it anymore because I think it was a way of people getting their name out there.
mhm.
Mhm.
Uh, Back to what my job was, I was training what I basically the application engineer for the reseller channel. So I go to a company and I demo the software for a company, and they would sell the software to a company to um, to these people based on what it can do. I was I was the ace in the hole. I was the cleaner, right? If they had a person, they should have a person there that demoed the software. And if he couldn't demo it, or that was a multi-million-dollar job and they needed somebody who was really good at it, can answer questions or think out of the box on the fly, and that's what I do the best. You know, it's like I get out there, what's the problem? I'll solve it. That is part and parcel of being a good teacher is just listening to the problem, just being able to do it. That was a great job. But on top of it, I had to train the personnel, right, to do these things. And again, part and parcel. What the other story I was telling is that there was nobody out there that knew Maya, right? So I'd go to a reseller, I train a guy. 3 months later, he'd be gone because some company picked him up, right?
Yeah.
So we had guys like, and I recognize these names: Jason Schleifer, Jeff Bell, um, uh, uh, Corbin Gossett. We got all like some guys who went out into the field, and Jason it was funny because he was one of the first ones to jump ship because he did a lot of demonstrations. He was out there doing um, uh, on stage doing a lot of different things,
Hmm.
and so he goes, yeah, I'm leaving the company. Where you going? He goes, I'm going down to New Zealand. Like, New Zealand? What the fuck is in New Zealand? He turns around and goes, this company's doing this thing is the Lord of the Rings. He said, Lord of the Rings?
Yeah. What's that?
What, Lord of the Rings? You mean that thing they did in Xerox back in the 70s, that trippy cartoon? He turns around and he goes, it ain't nothing like that, Vic. They're really doing they do a big job with this. Like, get the fuck, who the fuck is going to go down to New Zealand? Came back with a New Zealand wife, worked on three, worked on all 3 pictures, got
Yeah,
like
has
top
an
grade.
accent.
I mean, he was one of the guys, from my understanding, who had a hand in rigging Gollum, and putting stuff together. And then he's the top technical character lead for Mastermind. You know,
It's Mastermind.
these guys worked their ways up, and they were the superstars back then. And you're talking the cusp of, the internet. The internet wasn't as big as it was.
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
you have your your place where you go to CGW, Computer Graphics World, the magazine, or you have I mean, and I have, where the hell is it? I know you're here. Oh, shit.
You have the
Fuck,
bird call
can't
for.
get it. And it was the way I promoted myself years ago.
Uh,
There it is.
I mean, now I'm kind of curious to see what's on the other side of the room. Like, I feel like there's like,
It's just like this like museum of like visual effects history.
That's me in my museum, right?
Yeah.
It was Post Magazine. There was CGW. There was a couple of other things where you made it into those magazines and they promoted you. I cut the articles out and you put them into a piece, and it was part of my interview, because you put in a VHS or something like that, you lay this book in front of them, and they start paging through it, and they see your name and all these credits. It's prestige. So it was still print back then. That was the promotion of choice. And I actually gauged some of some of that, how far a company was by if I would work with them. And then it was the cusp of the CD, right? Where I would take a CD or a DVD, and I walk into an interview, and it was at that point, it was much cheaper to cut a CD or burn a CD than to try and get VHSs, right?
Yeah.
You hand the VHS and CD to them, and they look at it, and I said, "So you're going to put it in?" They said, "We don't have a way of playing this." I said, "Give me my CD. Thank you for the interview." Right? And they're like, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "If you don't have a CD in this day and age, you're not bleeding edge enough to hire me, and you can't afford me. Give me my CD." So where do we leave off?
Yeah, where do we leave off?
Well, do you have a
So
list of
You were
we're
questions?
talking.
talking
So
about
the guy went to Weta. He worked on Lord of the Rings, and then
yes.
many billions of dollars later.
Yeah, I would love to see the hope that actually really kind of strange. Um, he started a company called Nimble Collective, right? And Nimble
Okay.
Collective
That's
basically
familiar.
was, yeah, it was this think tank where everybody can use his software and basically produce work and put it out on the internet and basically take the cost of software off the table, and you can work it and then put it into a project. Well, I still haven't sat down with him and found out what happened, but and found out what the buyout actually was. But guess who bought him?
Autodesk.
Order Amazon Work Services.
Uh,
Yeah, the
yeah.
AWS
AWS. Yeah,
services. So now you won't find Nimble anywhere. He's now, so I think he's sitting back on a pile of money right now, and he's making himself. And actually, Jeff Bell is doing the same thing. Jeff is doing something. What's the name of Jeff's company? And he does, and they help promote it.
yeah. Jeff Bezos' latest company.
Yeah.
No, oh, not just Jeff Bell's.
Jeff
No,
Oh,
Bell. Yeah.
he's
Bezos
one.
is doing like space stuff now. He's trying to go to
right.
Yeah,
space.
they're all over the
Well,
place. They diversify. I mean, the best thing to do is to diversify.
Yeah. The have you heard about like Cinefx? How Cinefx went out of business?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty wild.
But that's part and parcel of like people hard headed about the technology of where things are going. Um,
yeah.
uh, who wanted to bitch slap Steven Spielberg when he turned around and said, that movie is now on television and aired on television first, and you're not worthy of an Oscar. Well, got news for you. 3 movies within the last 3 months aired. Like HBO just double released um, Coming to America too,
Yeah.
right? So it's on HBO and it's on the
Yeah.
movie theater.
Well,
It's
HBO is doing all kinds of like they really pissed off a lot of people
oh yeah,
with like they're doing the Snyder cut. They were gonna. I don't know if they released Tenet. Did they release Tenet on HBO Max?
they well it's on what do you call it? It was on
Some
not Hulu,
Prime, I think.
Prime or something. Yeah, I know it was on
Yeah.
Prime.
But
But yeah, what do you call it? So what was it? I think uh this coronavirus forced the hand of the deliverables now of what was going on, because movies started. There was the iPack or iMovie something. It started with an I. It had nothing to do with Apple, but they served dinner, and they have these. And there was one down in the south tip of Manhattan, and it had a bar in it, and it had like fine dining.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. What's the name of the movie theater? We went to see Star Wars with Arthur and Nick.
Alamo Drafthouse.
Yeah, that's what you were talking about.
Which one? What's the name of it?
Alamo
Alamo.
Drafthouse.
I don't know. No, but it's iPack or iMove or something like that. But then all of a sudden you found AMC following suit with that. Ripping out all those uncomfortable narrow seats and putting in loungers, and then having white glove service to your table with food, and then like white cups of wine. And it's all of a sudden now they had to step up their game and get a liquor license. What movie theater needed to do that?
Yeah.
So they were just on the cusp of making the investment to get break even with the everybody's thing, because everybody's busy. At least in the states. To go. I mean, you're either a, a dweeb who wants to see the first run of the move of Star Wars, or first cut of something like that. You wait online out in the weather, or you got a job. And if you got a job, you're willing to wait until the you could sit back and enjoy it. Who wants to sit in a noisy theater when grandma opens up her cell phone, and decides to do something? So now all of a sudden the pandemic comes through, forces everybody's hand. We're getting backlogged on different pieces of movies and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure Cruise is dying to get his first paycheck from Top Gun and stuff, you know,
Yeah.
because
The
he produced and put that whole thing together and put everybody out there. And then what's the other one big release that's supposed to happen on that level? But now they have to wait until you know the movies actually come to pass. And in the meantime, we were laughing about Star Wars. Paramount's like, we have a Star thing, Star Trek. Let's
yeah.
do all this stuff. Well, that's only going to last for how long? People who are nostalgia who want to see some stuff like that, they'll catch up with all that stuff. But then you got to start producing new content.
Right.
Yeah. It's
And I
inevitable.
one of the stories, Joe Choi, comedian, was producing a comic, an on-stage thing, and people at Netflix were like, "We don't want it." And he goes, "No, no, but we're selling this. We're putting it together. We'll do the production, and everything." And they just turned around and said, "We're not interested in it." And I was very disturbed that that type of mentality was coming back in, to that Netflix was almost like you could just post something, you could do the pilot and put it out there, and they'll just pay for content and pay for viewership, almost like consignment. I hope that's at the business model. I hope that's the way they're actually doing it, because then you put it out there. Kevin James came out with something called The Crew, which was a decent comedy. It's funny, makes me pass the time when I'm not doing stuff. But
Yeah.
there's definitely a vacuum now, for content. So it I think it's in our best interest, And
Yeah.
I know the Amazing Miss Maisel. It's being produced over in the Navy Yards, but the people who are doing the back doing the but it's being produced. There's a small production company in the tip of the island that's doing some of the backgrounds, and is it Han or somebody was doing working on some of that stuff.
Mhm.
So, and again, there, I think there's been a hang up with the pandemic, but I think it's a huge, like I said, I think it's the platinum age of doing backgrounds, special effects, rebuilding, reconstructing, green screening, all this stuff. And I think when the what do you call it, the pandemic is gone, we're going to come back to, I don't even know what we're coming back to. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, everyone we talk to usually it's everyone seems to kind of bet on the hybrid model, where like a lot of people, well, you're gonna have like the VR, like the virtual production stuff and all the real time stuff is gonna take hold, and you're gonna have these environments where you have some part of your workforce is remote and some part of it is not,
no,
and
for
it's all
sure.
very tricky because it also kind of conflicts with tax incentives and so, but that seems to be what everyone's trying to do. It's like everyone kind of like when this remote work stuff started to happen, a lot of people realized that like, well, this kind of works
Yeah.
and like
I
rent.
ABC, I don't know if we talked about this, broke ground on a new building when Disney, I guess, started buying back the stocks and their stock value went up. They broke ground and what have you, and they're building a new building. The current building is on 67th Street and Columbus Avenue, and
Hmm.
it's block long. And I think there's one building in the middle of our buildings that's a residential building, but the rest of it is the studio. And then we have one studio in Times Square that we do fiber back and forth. We do the graphics uptown, and we put in all the lowers and everything via all that stuff. But the directors there, well, they're taking this building down because it's becoming very cost effective that for residential area, and they've already sold the building off. They broke ground on Prince Street downtown, right on the water, right there by the tunnel. By the time they finish this thing, I'm going to be retired because who the fuck wants to go down there and like try to commute down to that area? I mean, I don't even. I mean, the same thing with Amazon and Benzo trying to put a place out in Queens. I'm like, that would have been ridiculous. I mean, with the logistics of travel and putting
Yeah.
tens of thousand people into that situation is ridiculous. And anywhere on Manhattan Island now to run a commercial business, especially the real estate that I need locally, like just me sitting down, is $350 a square foot, a month, you know?
Yeah.
So building this monstrosity out there. And I think we're proving because we have a good team of people out there uh, to do stuff. You know, I think they're realizing that their footprint can be a lot smaller and still keep everything local. So I'm starting to see glimmers of intelligence from management that using Team Viewer, using different things, and we're using AWS for our connection to our
Yeah.
service, the Amazon Workspace. So what did I say AWS was? I said something stupid. Web services is Amazon Workspace. Yeah, but the weird part is that I can't wrap my head around is that I dial into Amazon Workspace and I dial into a server in Virginia
Oh
that
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
dials back into a server back in New York, and and there is a little latency. It's a little uncomfortable, but the fact that going halfway across the United States and then coming all the way back is a remarkable feat that we're still productive.
No, it's really yeah. Because me and Oz got into that. Like we're cloud based,
Mhm.
so we got all into that kind of like we use Google instead of Amazon, but it's all the same thing. It's in Virginia. There's like a relay under I forget what the building is in Manhattan, but Google. So the Google headquarters in on Manhattan on the island is right
Uh-huh.
above the main fiber relay for the entire island. So
Right.
there's literally just like one point where everything goes and just goes out to everyone's thing, and it goes out to their data center in Virginia. So they
Wow.
have these companies are building these like very sophisticated and very big fiber networks to accommodate this stuff, where
Yeah.
you're like, you can have like very very little latency and have a server like halfway across the country in a different state.
That's incredible for
Yeah,
me.
it's wild. And
It's not- it-
you can push it too. Like I've worked on servers in LA and like vice versa, and it's still doable. Depending on if you kind of tinker with it, you can still do it.
and you're working on film?
I was working on like a commercial, I think,
Oh, okay.
doing that. Yeah.
Yeah,
For film,
that's
work
still,
on,
I'm still an old man. I still going back to what was happening in Viacom with the that bubble guppies thing. I think one of the reasons why they were getting mad at me is because I actually called them out on a few things. We were having issues, uh, disaster, I turned around and said, they give us this designation where everything was stored. And they would give me a hard drive to download from the company that we got the project from. And they only had like a small space designated for us to work on.
Mhm.
So I'm like, Jesus, I said, man, how small can this fucking thing be? So I look at the back of my computer and all of a sudden I notice that my phone is going through my computer. I'm like, why is my phone tied into my computer? Right? So they're using voice over IP there, one. So
Mm.
now, regardless of what you think, everybody's talking, everybody's throwing data around, you're still going over the same copper. So I walk and I take a look at the cable. I'm like Rain Man. I'm walking down the hall going, yeah, there's the cable. There's the cable. Yeah, blue cable, blue cable. I follow the cable all the way down. It goes into this glass room. Put my eyes up a glass room. I try to open the door. I can't get into the door. I get around one corner of the room and I look and there's nothing but switches.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute. There isn't a fucking computer in this whole place except our computers, and we're using like secretary's computers, no minimal graphic engines, what have you,
Yeah.
and we're running the stuff over copper. So here I am. They said, "Well, Vic, how come it's taking you so long to download and organize all this stuff?" I said, "Well, where are these servers?" So the head woman looks around. She goes, "Why? What are you asking?" I said, "Because there's not a computer here on this floor." I said, "It's and this designation that you gave us." I said, "I don't know where it is." So she goes back and she asks a question. Comes back from one of the technical people. This guy was an ex psyop guy. He goes, "Oh yeah, it's one of two places." I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "Where are they?" He goes, "Long Island City or Secaucus." I'm like, "Wait a minute." I said, "Wait a minute. The hardware isn't even in this building." I said, "And one is like out of state." He says, "Yeah, and because we're here on Varick Street, we have the oldest copper network here. Everything's going out via DSL." I'm like, "Oh my god!" I said, "You're so. What do we do when we run out of space?" Well, we have to take certain parts of the project off, and it was like a shuffle game. Take
Yeah.
one part of the project off, and then like to delete it still took like an hour to delete it, and you had to take it off in parts because it was under a server that, as I wasn't a root user. It was just a disaster of some of how these things work.
Mm.
So if it coming from that, seeing how Amazon Workspace works and how things are working, I mean the future is definitely a remote model.
Yeah. Because it's gonna get to the point because we're only kind of in like the beginning stages of like really advanced infrastructure. Because what you were saying is like there's still things on copper. Not everything is fiber yet. We don't have 6G. Like we haven't really gotten into like the crazy stuff yet,
Yeah,
where you could stream 4K over Wi-Fi
yeah.
at quality. Like virtually lossless.
I mean,
So
beyond now,
at that point, it's kind of like you don't even need fiber necessarily. Like you could just
well, it not even from a work element, but back to the teamwork uh, type of thing. Let's. I need Arthur's skill set somewhere in California. We don't have the resources to bring him out, but we need him for one part of this project for 3 days. Dial him up. There's the
yeah,
premium. No airplane. No putting him up in a hotel. No this. No that. No the other thing. Right.
yeah,
Boom. Knock it out, and we have your expertise on the West Coast.
yeah. It's gonna be like a 10-minute thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you available? Yeah. Get on.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is something that me and Oz were talking about when you cut out is Blender.
Speaking of,
Yeah.
yeah,
Speaking of, is Blender. Is there a place for that type of software? Yeah, I think open source is a great thing for almost for pilots who are starting out. The cutoff where Blender hits its head on the ceiling is software development and actually having a competition out there. Autodesk, once you
Right.
find out that the software can't do anymore, right? Who do you turn to? You turn to the people who developed it. Now, if you turn to open source, you don't know if it's internal or if it's part of the prod or if it's part of
Yeah.
the source code. Autodesk, except for like the bonus tools, we know who the writers are, and they know most of the writers on the bonus tools anyway. And they're out there anyhow. So you can always turn when you get a hiccup to somebody and
Yeah.
get through that hiccup somewhere. So
Blender's getting in like this weird space too now where Blender's actually very interesting, I think, because after the whatever that the Academy Software Foundation was created, where like the Academy has like an open source software fund now where they fund open source projects. And Blender got a lot of money from that. Like Blender has like money from like Amazon now and like Facebook, and their team blew up. So now they're completely open source, but they have resources and they're
yeah,
doing all this stuff and they're working on these things and like yeah, it's kind of like interesting because there's some kind of like on the corporate side, there's definitely people that are interested in making Blender very powerful,
yeah.
but
Well,
then it's
the
open source.
Amazon Workspace definitely was the Nimble Collective
Hmm.
that Jason Schleifer and Bell and all those other guys were working on. I don't know if so Bell was, but I know Corbin Gossett was there. It was just as I was talking with them and finding out what the issue, what was going on. I didn't even have a computer there. I didn't even have a home base.
Mhm.
Um, and they were asking questions like, "So, what's your experience with Blender?" And like when we were at Alias Wavefront, you talk about Blender. So what kind of software do you use? Blender. Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, I still like that a little bit.
There's still that stigma to it, but nonetheless, it's come a long way. I mean, there's a Corbin asking me. He goes, "So, what's your experience with Blender?" I'm going, Corbin, really? Blender? You're asking me about Blender? He goes, "Oh yeah, I use Blender." So, really? You use Blender? I had to ask him 3 times. Like you said, there's an interest in open source in Amazon and all these other things to open up.
Yeah, it's
There's
opening it
no
up.
period anymore.
Yeah.
Is there? You can their virtual space, Unreal Engine, you know, delivering movies over the internet, rejiggering, you know, all these old stories. I guarantee we're just talking about the production side of things. Writing, the writers got to be going out of their fucking batshit mind, trying to write screenplays for these things,
Yeah.
you know, and there's got to be a play after a play after a play after a play. Hey, back in the '70s, you have a movie come out. Um, it was unheard of to have a sequel to a movie. Now it's like the character development has to have a open end at both
Yeah.
sides so
You're
they can
building a brand.
yeah, they open up the brand, open up the franchise.
You're
You
building
know,
Yeah.
everything as a franchise now, really. Like if you're making a show, like first of all, it's like if you even, if you even start by making like a movie that's 2 hours, like nowadays it's like, well, you're talking about making entire TV shows
yeah.
in like multi-season scale, right?
Mhm.
And like I follow this one person on LinkedIn. Oh, I forget her name, but she works in development, right? And nowadays, when you develop a show, you're developing like a whole universe. It's like, how is this going to be like, how many seasons is this going to be? Like, what is it going to be like on season 10? How are you selling t-shirts? How are you selling this? How are you selling that? How is it going to work on social media? What's your strategy on this? What's your strategy on that?
Yeah.
It's like crazy. Like you're basically building a whole company, and
I'm
it has to
watching.
be good.
I'm watching this thing. It's not even on Patreon. He keeps the Sammy the Bull Gravano, the mobster, the underboss who sold out John Gotti, and he's got story after story after story. And he keeps hinting to the fact that he's working with movie deals, so he's talking with people about movie deals. I'm like, I want to grab a hold of the guy and turn around and say, Mr. Gravano, forget about fucking movies. You have the utmost, what do you call it, TV series out there, because now when you think of like Shameless, you think of all these,
Right.
the content that they make. Let's start from when you were a kid, and really, it always seemed like they start in the middle, right? Where like they're at the peak of their where they came from, and it seems like even Star Wars did that. Episode 4, you know,
Literally, in a way, yeah.
and they had to make the build the end part so interesting. And I think it was almost the build up to that was more interesting than Episode 4, and then like I didn't even watch the last two. I don't even know what the fuck happened in the last two.
Let that be a
In
good thing.
my honest opinion, you didn't miss much.
Yeah, I know. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for it to come out on videotape. That's how long I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the CD. I'm waiting for the videotape.
No, you'll watch it on like a plane one day. It's
Yeah,
gonna be the
yeah,
best option. That's when
yeah.
you.
The interest is not there, and I think Disney has done the right thing in buying the rights and the intellectual property for most of that stuff. But when you get somebody who, like, you got Sammy the Bull Gravano, you got Franchise, you got all these guys who lived through the mafia and Cosa Nostra, and came out the other side because it was silent. There was secret societies. They should have been dead. And then you hear how they got out of some of that stuff, that the backstory on some of the things and how they got through this. And like hearing Sammy Guarano turn around, he goes, what does he to say he has? And I got to laugh because he was like, when you can't read, everything's backwards. What's the name of that?
Oh, a palindrome?
No, the learning
No, wait.
disability.
No, I have a little bit of it.
I don't know.
Dyslexia.
Dyslexia. He goes, yeah, dyslexia, right? He turns around. He goes, yeah. All my life, I've had dyslexia. And I don't know. And I'm like, I had the
You got Alexis?
and I said, that is, the ultimate Italian from Bensonhurst. That's where I was born, Bensonhurst. I was like,
Yes.
I love it. Yeah, I got the Lexia. All my life I had the Lexia. Everybody, the story, the backstory of somebody like that building. You got, if you take, and like even like the Avengers and some of the movies that they've come out with, those comic books were long. I mean, and they were pretty thick as far as um, uh, graphic novels or long graphic. And I think we went through like the wars, the Infinity War and all that other stuff really fast, And I think they could have done and aired it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I still think, like you said, Arthur, we're still in the back thinking that we still have to make a movie 2 hours long. No, we've proven that, there's other movies out there I think we've proven that a movie can be 4 hours long. And, now the delivery medium is there where, back when newsreels, when you think about the Nickelodeons and you think of the way the movies were made then, lights flashed, you went outside, You got yourself a soda, a popcorn, a drink, a this, a that, and the other thing. Lights flashed again. You all went back in, watched. There was intermissions built into movies,
Hmm.
right? Well, you don't have to build intermissions into movies.
Yeah, it's called the pause button.
That's the
Oh,
point.
yeah.
Exactly. It's easy.
Yeah.
And movie theaters were I try to compete with that, build it, and I think the pandemic turned around and said everybody looked and said, "Oh wow, $1,700, I can get a 70-inch TV in my living room. That's as big as any film theater I've ever been at."
Yeah.
And then people will sit and
Right.
go, "Oh yeah, but it's $1,700." I said, "Yeah, but it's $30-$40 for popcorn." you know?
Yeah. $20 for the ticket, and then like $30 for the food.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when
I
I
don't.
mean, last time I went out, and I didn't mind. I mean, it's a night out. I got to get out. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to get beyond the end of a theater, but I think they're going to become highly
Yeah.
specialized.
Yeah.
I went early. We bought the ticket. We got there. We found parking. Sat down at the bar. Right. Ordered a couple of drinks. You got You got a number where you're seated, so you're not going to lose your seat.
Right.
Looked at the menu, looked at a few things, ordered it, bring it to our table. We went inside. I mean, it's a definitely a different experience than what we were brought up on. And
Yeah.
I think the evolution of entertainment and the deliverables of entertainment and how we're actually putting it together is all coming together. And the software is part of it also.
Yeah.
Software, and like you said, Oz, Shake has got to needs competition, for them to give a shit.
Nuke.
Shake Nuke, right? Well, it's the same
Same
story.
idea. Yeah.
Same
Well,
thing.
Shake
Yeah.
didn't have any. Well, Shake.
Yeah, we were when you were out, we were talking about well, Fina mentioned how like on the blender how like you need a proper like software house to actually like ask for issues that you're having with the software
Mhm.
that maybe Blender doesn't have. And then I mentioned, well, in visual effects, we're having issues that we do have a software house, but they're not providing,
Yeah.
as Andre does at the moment,
Yeah.
they're not really providing solutions for issues.
Well, because eventually, yeah, like eventually, their interests kind of misalign, or like I don't
Right.
even know what It depends on how you look at it. I feel like if like with the Foundry, if you're Weta, I'm pretty sure they're listening to what Weta has to say. There's a lot of deep tools inside of Foundry products that nobody really uses except for Weta because they have the infrastructure to even do anything in deep
On the
space.
flip, on the flip side of that, also, Arthur, is like there is the news graphics. There is the everyday commercial person who does a TV commercial or does something on the internet that they need
Mhm.
a set of tools. When we first designed Maya, it was character animation. Character animation. We saw the beginning of character animation, doing dinosaurs and all that other stuff internally
Yeah.
inside of a computer, where you didn't have to make all these big effects. But once we conquered that, it was like, who do we kill next, right? And it was like, okay, gaming. And the big laugh was we're not even close to what we fucking need for gaming. We didn't have any of the poly tool sets. We didn't have anything. So they wound up buying the next tools, and they got big fish eating small fish again. But they had that going on. But I think what you get us, they're getting a discount. Weta. What you may have 1,000 seats there, 2,000 seats. How many people you think are employed at Weta to do that?
I would say 1,000.
Say 1,000.
For nuke, I'd imagine it's like 1,000 most.
1,000 most, right? So let's give them 2,000, right? To keep the fucking company floating, you need 10,000 licenses. Out there feeding the machine, keeping things together. That's what brought Soft Homage to its fucking knees, is that they just couldn't sell any more software, and Maya became the monster. What do
Hmm.
those other 8,000 need? and especially now that it's subscriptions, that's a double-edged sword that's going to cut the software company really, really bad, right? Because
Yeah.
once I mean, unless the subscription runs out and the software is just stops working altogether, how many versions do you buy where you turn around and say, I don't need any of those new tools,
Yeah.
or I don't need any of that stuff, and if I can make if it costs $2,000 for Maya a year and I can pay them in installments, and then half a year I'm finished with my project, I say forget about it, I don't need it anymore, right? And then until the next time, and you'll work out a deal where you can actually say start pick up my payments again. I mean, you got to dangle a carrot out there somehow. There's got to be something that feeds the machine and keeps on the edge, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Nuke doesn't have competition, right? But the company, the software that I'm working with right now, VizRT, there's very little competition out there, and this piece of software is a piece of garbage, right? But it's dug in like an Alabama tick into the broadcast industry, so there's a lot of
Yeah.
people who actually use it. So, and when you look at like Unreal Engine, I think Unreal Engine is it's its money is in the gaming and in some of the development now, and you can see some of the templates are there that used for broadcast and stuff. So they think they're out there, they're seeking and destroying, those little markets. And I think they're hungry enough to go out there, and I think they could, if they could find, and again, it goes back to way Maya came into the market. If they could find a way to get the end user educated, and like the end user turns around and says, "The hell with that piece of crap. This piece of crap works much better," you know, and and there's we're getting attention from the people. And I when I first walked into Alias Wavefront for my interview,
Yeah.
I was just a Bronx boy, going from place to place. A Bronx boy, a Brooklyn boy, going from place to place to place, scoring, work all over the place. They showed me Artisan, right? They were the first product out there where you could sculpt, paint attributes and
Yeah.
stuff. And I had four guys with PhDs surrounding me, going, "So what do you think?" "Hey, I think it's great." Good. No, 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 no. What do you think? What can we do? We got a questionnaire. If you really want, we can get back in touch with you. If you're not hired by the company, we can ask. We want to know what we can do to make this a better product.
Yeah.
You need that hunger to keep the software going. On
Yeah. It is. Yeah. It's like
Seen Unreal acting a little bit like that. I mean, you can download Unreal for free. You can do it and do whatever you want with it. Test it out, learn, and then and I've seen them like going around at some like asking people like what do you think or what teaching and kind of like listening
yeah.
on their feedback. So that I noticed on them. So
Yeah. There's a few people. Black Magic is doing that with Fusion. I mean,
yeah,
they're probably going after more like the After Effects editorial side of things, but they're trying to offer like like a more advanced compositing package with that. But they're doing the same thing, like getting Fusion. Fusion's free. You can
Yeah,
just get Fusion. I mean, it's pretty powerful. There are some people out there that can do feature level VFX with it. Um,
I
and
wonder
it's
if there
out there.
are
They're trying to nudge themselves in.
I wonder if there are some people behind the software that actually came from Maya and they kind of like learn what Vic was telling us.
well,
What do you
there
mean?
there've been people who move through from company to company to company.
Yeah.
The TDI guys, Peter Warner, Lewis, and what have you, they moved to Illusion and then moved to Shake, and they were working with Shake and then working with Shake, and the death kiss of Apple came along. right? Where Apple always does this, and it's ridiculous. Like they buy a piece of software and they try to buy their user base, and then they put it on the Apple hardware. Then they license it only for the Apple, thinking that people are stupid enough to buy it and buy. And I can't tell you how many pieces of software have bitten the dust, just
Yeah.
because of that. And it's the wrong business,
Well, it's a
you
big
know.
difference between like kind of the more like a professional level consumer versus like just a regular consumer. Like somebody like the regular person probably likes an end user model where everything is the same and everything you only go to one place. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel like for us, like if everything's one company, I get really nervous.
Yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know,
There's a lot. You put a lot of eggs in one basket.
yeah, it's like that. Like to me, I start getting like really nervous. It's like okay, like one thing goes wrong, or if they change their policy one day, that compromises a lot of money for me, and
You
like
talk
I'm not
talk
interested in that.
talk to an ex Softimage user.
Yeah,
You know,
no, and there's examples of that. Yeah, there's just
there were people who like Softimage and ice is great. Like, yeah, ice is fantastic, but that's just node based, you know, programming. I said, Houdini does that, and Maya's not too far off from doing that. So, you're in Softimage land. I don't see a lot of Softimage in listservs, for looking for work. And
yeah.
push came to shove. I did. I know Lee Frazier was part of um, the discussions with Autodesk with Softimage. Uh,
Hmm.
he was another application engineer who wound up going into the marketing side of things. I hired him basically. I interviewed him and hired him and said, "Yeah, we got to put this guy on." Brilliant kid at the time. Um, he heard about Softimage, going up for sale, and it had something like $8 million in sales over 1 year. Right? And you go, oh wow, $8 million in one sales. I had a $12 million number tied to me, and I was tied to North America, not North America, Northeast America. Everything like everything south, east of Ohio when I first started at Alias Wavefront. So $8 million for global sales is nothing, you know. And
Hmm.
he heard that they were up. That well, the company heard that they were up for sale, and the company again, Autodesk and Alias Wavefront, um, people turned around to each other and said, "Well, what do you think about this? Them going up for sale?" And Lee basically put out the synopsis, and I, the few people I knew, I turned around. I said, "I can't say anything, but you better get off of Soft Image real quick," because he turned around. He knew that what was going on. They said, "Well, what do you think?" And Lee turned around to the company and said, "Listen, Lightwave is still out there as a low end company, and Lightwave was the equivalent of like Blender. Lightwave is out there, and they have not only Soft Image's tools, but they have Ice, which is the effects tools, which is now like Bifrost." He goes, "We could let them get out there, and they could get the Lightwave for you know whatever they do, and they could become a competitor, or what's their asking price?" And they said, "Well, I don't know, 13, 14, $15 million. Can buy them, Borg them, take the best of what they have, squash them." And that's exactly what they did. And I heard that, and I was telling some of my friends, I'm like, hey, if you're using this off the munch, you better get the fuck off of it quick. So,
Hmm.
well, not going to be around. It's kind of
Yeah.
amazing that you have two pieces of software that are in parallel development inside of Autodesk. And I think there's that type of static is keeping the competition going alone, because you have, 3D Studio Max and Maya, and each one's dipping into each one's bucket going, oh, that tool's nice. Oh, yeah, that.
Yeah.
That's where I get like really curious about like kind of the developments with Blender. Like I'm almost less interested in Blender as a tool and more of like their model. They, in a weird way, if they develop enough where they can become like an industry standard tool and they have enough resources where they can, keep up with updates and everything, they are weirdly immune to like these like, you know,
Which
like
was it?
financial movements where like people buy them out. Like you can't buy out in like an open source company. It's open, like it's all there.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's interesting. It's really interesting to me, like how where that's gonna go because it's also being fun. Like you have money from big companies, and there's like the academies kind of behind it now. And yeah, I don't know what that means. I don't
Yeah,
know what that
yeah.
does.
Those are the wild cards. You don't know how they've been surviving so long, and now
Yeah,
that they're they've become industry known, and they still you still see OBJ
yeah,
imports, right? That was the original wavefront format. That fucking that's 30-year-old format, right?
yeah.
So it goes way, 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 way back in software development, and it's still being used. So if you're still using it and it's still robust, and then you still have that type of import on Unreal Engine, and then you have you could import, then you have FBX, right?
Mhm.
As a standard. There's the fork in the road, right? It's like you're kind of sitting there as a user going, all right, which one's going to win? Which software should I keep up with? Uh,
Yeah,
what's happening here? And then you hear stuff like, especially on the effects side, you hear companies trying to level the playing field with software and putting out like Amblic Cache, right? Which is supposedly, you know, becoming the OBJ standard for any type of effects that you have out there. So, like,
mhm,
I could take any SOP or DOP that I've put into Houdini, build it, and then import it inside of Maya, and use it inside of Maya, and use it inside of those effects, and still have Arnold, to render to, and
mhm,
that type of stuff.
yeah.
I think you can. There's and again back to what Apple's doing. It's like you can only use Apple software and Apple hardware for everything to work, and it's like it's been the death kiss for every piece of software. It's like, it ain't gonna work. You have to stay flexible across the. What was the editing software that they rewrote and killed?
Final Cut
Yeah,
Final, right?
by rewriting it, basically.
Yeah. Fuck the death kiss. That was the Apple death kiss. Watching that was
yeah. Why
painful.
did they do that? It's always going to be a mystery, like because it's also so like just because before that version of Final Cut Pro, there was a very strong community of people that used Final Cut for editing.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah,
common sense, usually the kind of like the standard approach is that like you go to those people and you're like, what can I change and what can I not change? And you keep the stuff that they're using and you change the whatever the requests are.
And
Uh,
there were people who were fucking relied on Final Cut Pro because they hated Avid,
yeah. So
right?
when Apple did that stuff, it's like they couldn't use the software, which like why would you do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then B, it's like they didn't, you're not just because you changed it doesn't mean you improved it,
Yeah.
because who did you change it for, right? Like you changed like so what now? Like some college kid can use it. Well, that's not where your money's coming from, right?
Your user base.
Yeah,
Absolutely true. You know, so when you do something like that, and they always did that with the hopes that everybody would migrate to Apple hardware. It just doesn't happen. You're the end
especially
effect.
with the for the Apple hardware with the Apple tax on.
Yeah, and it's
the Apple
expensive. It's
Pack.
convenient. It's we're hot rodders now. You get these bare bones systems over here. You go into Egghead software, and put in LED lights and cool shit, and heavy RAM, and liquid coolers, and
Yeah,
it's amazing what you can hotwire these days.
yeah,
Yeah,
You know
exactly. It's kind of yeah.
the,
There's a different kind of
the end result
culture.
is the content. The end result is the art.
Yeah.
But and we've proven that time and time again. You know, the artist is. I mean, you can almost look at it the parallel and way artists have moved into derelict communities and built up the art and built up the communities again. You know, the Village, Beacon, Woodstock. You know, how we've developed all this type of stuff, and the corporate model has always been to jump on it and make money as fast as possible, whatever way possible. But in the end, it was like the artist tool. This is a pen, right? What is it worth? 4 cents, 10 cents, 5 cents, right? But what comes out of that end, whether it be the artist or the writer, is what makes this worth $1 million,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It's just the application of it.
This is not the tool, right? It's not, and I used to tell you guys all the time. I'm trying to find. I got a brain fart now that I'm using Unreal Engine, and I want to do something with it, but I can't figure out what I want to do with it to learn the software
Mm.
to put it through its practical purposes that I can learn the use of it.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of brain power.
Yeah.
You
It
take,
does.
and I used to tell you guys, right? Remember the electric light switch, right? Everybody remembers this rant of mine. So you go over to the wall over there. There's a light switch. There's a red wire. There's a black wire. There's a white wire. There's a green wire. It's been the same way for the last 75 years. Maybe the red wire, maybe some of the wires have changed, but for the last 75 years, the guy who installs that as an apprentice gets $50 an hour, right? Say electric goes the same way, whether it's DC, AC, voltage, everything the same way every year. Every 6 to 8 months, something radically changes in our industry that we have to be adaptable to what's
Yeah.
going on. And we have to move along with that every single time. And you have somebody who turns around and says, yeah, we'll pay you $25 an hour for it. I find, and that used to be the minimum when I used to sit there and think about it. I said, now you got to be making $40 an hour. And if I find out you're making less than $40 an hour in this industry, get out in the middle of the street while I start the car, because I'm going to run you over. And sure, once I hit you, I'm going to back over you again, because it makes it bad for you. Don't think about how important your skill set is,
Yeah.
and
This is the
we
only
have,
thing.
right. And this industry has moved so fast. We've moved far outpaced any union out there that can put a price on what we're worth.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's
so do you think that like new artists should be at least kind of like introduced on what the prices are? Because like when I started, I didn't really know how much to ask, and I definitely got a
It's always a problem. Yeah.
yeah. I just learned just recently that there was on the my listserv they were talking about the hold costs, and I turned around and I said, I don't think you should hold. What I remember about what the hold cost was, I said that's called retainer. Somebody put you on hold. You should pay. Somebody should pay you money to be on retainer.
Mhm.
yeah.
But then they said talking about being on hold. Now, I heard that a couple places at the time, and this was my knowledge of what was going on, they put you on hold for a month. So
Yeah.
I can't look for a
Longer
fucking
than
Oh,
that.
yeah,
job.
that was this job I was on hold for 3 months. But
Really, you couldn't touch it to forget about that. I mean, that's ridiculous.
that's why I told
I turn around and tell them, yeah, I'm on hold. I'm on hold. I take on every
yeah,
fucking.
I tell everybody like, yeah, sure, you want to hold, take a hold, but like to me, the hold really doesn't mean anything because
Yeah.
until you hire me,
Yeah.
Right?
Wait.
He's like,
we love.
you got Lincoln?
Yeah, you're good. Okay, you're back.
If you can't get your client to pull the trigger inside of 2 weeks, you really don't have a business model, or you really
Yeah.
don't have a commitment. So being on hold past 2 weeks is like kind of ridiculous. I got bills to pay. I mean, outside, if I'm out of work for more, I mean, I got commitments, but if I'm out of work for more than 2 weeks, I'm hurting. I'm hand to mouth type. I'm really going to hurt. And if I lose my job, I start going into my savings and my retirement. Oh, there we go. We moved.
Okay. That's the
So, you know, you're, yeah, there should be a business. There either has to, I think it's one of two things, Oz. I think you either need a business, how to do business in the industry type of thing, and that's going to be regionally how these things are put together, or we need a union.
yeah.
That
Speaking of unions, though.
and I'm not a proponent of unions because any union that I'm a part of never really got me a job, never really made me hold a job, and really
Yeah.
kind of holds me back from making more than my peers are.
Yeah. None of these things are perfect solutions. Like a union is not a perfect solution. It solves some problems and then creates other problems.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's kind
that's
of
really
like in
what
the
it.
end,
So,
yeah.
and regionally, what being put on hold for what, right?
What's a
The
guarantee for a guarantee? It's like if you're gonna, if you're asking me to go on hold, and I'm giving you this guarantee, then like what is my guarantee, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if you're gonna put me on hold for 3 months and then nothing happens, well then there's nothing. There was never anything there, you know.
It's fake.
We never actually made a trade of any kind.
Yeah, there was three projects I worked on. Well, I went out west for, and the last one was Godzilla, Matthew
Mhm.
Broderick, right? And I was put on hold, and it was shelved, and it was shelved, and it was shelved, and then finally turned around, and it's like, this project's been shelved 3 times. They called me up the last time, and they said, "Can we put you on hold for a couple of weeks? We'll get our people to get in touch with you. We'll find housing for you. We'll do this. We'll do that. We'll do the other thing." I finally turned around and said, "How long do you need?" She goes, "Well, we need 3 or 4 weeks. We're going to be putting this whole thing together, and it's going to be at least a 2-year project." That point, I'm married. I had one kid, had another on the way, and I'm like, forget it. It was I turned it down. It was like, what, I'm going to up, and people do it. And there was an article like 4 or 5 years ago where it was called the paper crate syndrome, where you have people who work from company to company and work in group to group, and they move from Sony Pictures ImageWorks to PDI to Weta to everything, and these people like never unpacking. They
Yeah.
so. Do you love this industry that much, or do you love the job that much, or do you want the high profile job that much? I mean,
Yeah. Maybe for a little bit, but after a while, it's
yeah.
not going to be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm living vicariously through my students. I like seeing them successful. You
Hmm.
know, the days of me packing up and going to the West Coast are gone. I mean,
Yeah.
my last vestige of hoping to work or get a movie credit is Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Getting a project, and actually, I got videotapes here of my portfolio. Yes, videotapes. I have nothing in high fucking definition. Who's going to hire me except the people I've worked with or somebody who can recommend me? So,
Yeah.
you're getting a job on a prayer. So,
Yeah.
it's an interest. I it's such an interesting business model how the software has to keep up, the productions have to keep up, the working from home, the hybrid people who have to be there and shoot certain things have to keep up. I think even if you're a set builder and you're doing virtual sets, eventually you basically have to go out and do some field work to see what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
So, and
So
I mean, like I said, it's the wild west, it's the platinum age. I think there's going to be a lot of money to be made out there.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's a lot of disruption, and there's a whenever like what I mean, what Wall Street calls it, blood in the streets. Like that's when you
yeah,
make your money. It's like when you figure out where things are gonna kind of go. Like you need some chaos to do that. So you can
yeah, and
see.
I think the pandemic is the perfect storm.
Yeah.
Chaos, how these things work.
Yeah. Okay. So we're. I think we this one was like an hour and a half, and again
Yeah,
I'm running out of time. because of,
Right.
because you're just
Well,
like I don't know. That's
I
just how it
think we
goes. So
covered.
here's what we're gonna do though, because so as the parting kind of segment of this, do you want to give like what's your advice? Because you're in the education space a lot. So like, what's your advice to artists that are coming up and that are trying to get into the business? What should
I
they
think
do?
I think the way I approached getting into the industry was real. I backed in, and I think I did that every different way possible. Even when my father was working in the business, he was working with laser plotters and routers and stuff. Um, these companies were selling $1 million plotters, and they were selling them to guys who were just didn't have the education to deal with it. And I'm trying to give the same advice to my daughter and my son. I think what you really got to do, and I think if you find a company that's really on the bleeding edge, you got to get out there, find out what you want to do or what you find interesting. Right? Danny Williams did the same thing. It was like once he found out what he was doing in college, he just latched onto it and failed everything else. And he stayed at the college until the college kicked him out because he knew what he wanted to do. And he just happened to find a skill set, and the people kind of found him. I think what you really need to do is go out there, find the business that you want to be in, or close to the business that you want to be in, that you're really interested in. Find the people who are out there who will talk to you, you know, and then find out what college they went to. Find out how they got into that business and that position, and then work backwards into that college. It's like, okay, and then talk to those businesses and say, where do you get those skill sets from? Where do you go to those places? Because I used to have 101 different places turn around and say, SVA, they charge so much for tuition. I'm like, yeah, but you make that fucking money back because we're number one in what we do. I think JMac, you say what you want about him, but the guy would not be looking at the high schools. Even Jimmy Calhoun now to this time, are going from production company to production company to production company and asking them, what do you need? What skill set do you need? And then we're providing it at the college level. So the same place is same thing. So it's a pull instead of a push, right? They're going to be looking for you, and then if the top of the resume says SBA and Arthur recommended you or Vic recommended you or something like that, and our integrity is there or Ozzy's integrity is there, we keep pulling up people. That's why you find a lot of Ringling people in production. That's why you find a lot of SVA people in production. That's why you find a lot of Savannah or Toronto colleges in there because they're not hooked into the high schools. Right? And I've worked for a lot of community colleges that are the same way. They're out for your money. Like I said earlier, right? They're businesses. Don't let them fucking fool you that they're in education, right? Go to the college that is respected and known for what they do and and who's backing them and how many film producers are backing Cal Arts, California Arts, because they know that they're putting out a skill set that they can use. Are you going to hire somebody from Mercy College or are you going to hire somebody from Noman?
Yeah.
Right? If you're in the industry, the skill set coming out of Noman is the skill set that's there. Who's working at Noman? Industry professionals, right? And Alex Alvarez has tapped into that all the time. So, they're doing their job looking at the industry. The younger person out there's got to do the same thing. They got to say, "Oh, that's attractive. That's what how many kids have you heard turn around and say, "What do you want to do? I want to do gaming." What do you mean? Well, you want to do gaming? What would you like to do in gaming? Oh, I just like playing games. They have no idea the fucking production, and what it's a movie production. It's a
Yeah,
story.
it's
It's
massive.
it's massive. What we need to
Maybe
do.
more. Yeah.
Arguably more than some movies, for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. So you, as where you want to be, has to be educated in what you're doing. I didn't think half of my skill set when I was coming out of the sign business doing plotting was. I failed math. I barely got out of my Regents diploma. I barely got my algebra. Um, uh, but to tell you that I program fluid dynamics, I blow shit up. I'm node based programming all the time. The shit that I do in this industry, you would think I was a computer scientist. And until the math became visual, it was something that I was interested in me. So when you talk about it, it's like if you love it and you're really interested in it, you got to go in from that area and say, if that's the job that I want, sir, let me take you out. And people are flattered to talk. You return. What do I need to get your job? What do I need to be an apprentice? What do I need to shine your shoes? People just want, and especially millennials today, they want to start out making $500,000. Dude, you got to break your fucking balls out here. You
Yeah.
really do. So, and that mentality of trying to find the top
We're
end.
millennials. Let's call them the Gen Z because we are millennials.
But
Well, millennials now are like in their 30s. Yeah.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
but quite frankly, it's broad strokes, but there are you guys. There
Yeah.
are, the Mark Cortans. There are Carmen Lateas. There's Jordan Blitt. There's the Josh Harveys, the Jordan Harveys. Right? You guys broke your fucking asses. Right? And you guys turn around half the time and say thank you for educating me. I just kicked you into play. Are you kidding? You guys were off the leash before you even got out of school. You had a focus on what you needed to do, and I don't think that focus exists anymore. And I don't think the business model, and especially now when we talk about this business model and all the ways that you can get into it are out there. There's a lot of ways of getting in, but you're going to have to you got to do a lot of homework.
Yeah. You have to change your point of view, at least for younger people, I guess.
Yeah,
All right, Vic. Thank you so much.
guys, it's been great. Love talking about this stuff because let's
Yeah.
visit this even if it's not even on air. You'll see if any of our predictions come true.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, eventually, once there's more vaccinations, I guess things are gonna get back to normal, and we'll be able to kind of meet up. Okay. Thank
All
you,
right.
Vic. Maybe we'll
All
do
right,
a
guys.
part three, eventually, but we have to do some more episodes in between.
Yeah, do what you have to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
put it there on the Maya network or on the Maya user group. Put it all over the place. Let's see
Yeah.
what kind of reactions we get.